I'm very, very honored by this. It's not the first time I've been on the cover of Time magazine, but this is the one that matters to me. Thank you, Jessica, wherever you are. I really appreciate it. It's so helpful for activism. You know, having a hit TV series is also very helpful. And being on the cover of Time magazine with an award like this really is even more helpful. So you know, one way to know that how much progress we've made, and John Kerry will understand this more than anybody, tonight so many people said the words fossil fuels. They named fossil fuels as the culprit, right? John, even the Paris conference, the Paris Peace Agreement, didn't mention fossil fuels, right, John? And so, you know, naming the problem is one of the keys to winning. We have to know what the issue is and give it a name. And I think, I guess the reason that I am devoting my life to this is, there's not much left of my life, but whatever's left, is, you know, I was born in '37. There were only 2 billion people in the world. There's over 8 billion now, but the fact of only 2 billion people on this earth was huge. It meant there was a lot of room and space and nature for a tomboy like me to get up close and personal with nature. There were no freeways in California. There was no smog. There was we lived on the top of a hill on a dirt road, and there were no neighbors, and I grew up to the sounds of coyotes and whippoorwills and nightingales and mourning doves, and I've swum and scuba dived on the Great Barrier Reefs, and in Galapagos I've looked at sea turtles right in the eye, and I love nature. I love what you said, Namonte. One of the big problems is that we've become alienated from nature. You know, when you say, have you had a tree bath, people don't even know what you're talking about. If you were in Japan, you would, because they know that trees impart properties to us that can help make us well. But we don't take nature seriously anymore, except as a commodity. So I grew up in this beautiful world of wild nature, and then I left for 20 years. When I came back, the lifeguards on the beach where I used to swim were getting cancer. My children were about 5 before they knew that there were actually mountains, hills around Los Angeles, because there was so much smog you couldn't see them. They got asthma. And so I was always an environmentalist whenever I could, but about 5 years ago, I read a book by Naomi Klein. It was 112 degrees in Los Angeles. The sky was brown-orange from the wildfires. And I read that birds were falling dead out of the sky over Arizona and New Mexico. And I started to go down the rabbit hole of despair till I read Naomi's book. And it was a lot of things, including Greta Thunberg, how she wrote about Greta Thunberg. Greta said, our house is on fire and we can't behave as business as usual. We have to leave our comfort zone. And so I moved to DC. Annie Leonard was my mentor. She was at the time running Greenpeace, and we figured out to do Fire Drill Fridays, modeled a lot on the movement that grew up in this country around the anti-apartheid movement it was, and Randall Robinson would get arrested every week. And it created a movement, so we decided we were going to do that. And we weren't aiming this at the government. We were aiming it because we knew that the majority of Americans are really concerned about the climate crisis. The Yale Communication Project reports that 30% of Americans say they'd engage in civil disobedience. And when they're asked, well, why haven't you? They say, well, nobody asked us. So Fire Drill Fridays was addressed to the great unasked. And I turned 82 in jail, and I thought, well, I know that people, all those women out there, those gray-haired women, they're going to say, well, if she can do it, God, I'm going to do it. And They started coming from all over the country, and they were mostly old women like me, and they'd never been to rallies, they'd never gotten arrested, and it was wonderful, except that Annie and I realized that with all the protesting and the arresting and the lobbying for decades, what people have been doing, we still can't get the legislation we need that's commensurate with what science says we have to have. Why is that? Well, it's because so many elected officials, Democrats as well as Republicans, take money from the fossil fuel industry. They're bought off. Our government is, the oil companies have a stranglehold on our government. And so we decided to continue with the movement building on the ground, but to also include electoral work. And we formed the Jane Fonda Climate PAC, and we focus mainly down ballot, because right now that's where the robust action is happening on climate. City councils, boards of supervisors, county executives, mayors. The Republicans knew it decades ago, and with Koch brother money, they took over state legislatures and all those local offices, and it matters a lot. It matters so. Secretaries of state, attorneys general, these people have tremendous power when it comes to the climate. And we have to do something about that. So we've begun working in the electoral sphere. If you can't change the people, change the people. Right? And this is what we can do. And so really what I want to say to you is this year, in this country, not to minimize the rest of the world, and we have representatives here from all over the world, but what happens in November in this country is going to play an oversized role in whether or not we have a livable future. This is an existential election that we're facing. And, you know, even though the majority of Americans really care about climate, I don't think they necessarily take it into the voting booth with them. We have to change that. We have to have climate in our hearts when we go in to vote. It's not hard to find out if the candidate you're considering voting for takes money from the fossil fuel industry, or if they've ever done anything a little brave to stop a pipeline or a toxic dump. That's what we have to do this year. And no matter what we feel about our Democratic candidate, we're not marrying him, okay? We're not even going on a date with him. It's a pragmatic decision. Why? It's a pragmatic decision. We need to keep in mind that Joe Biden provides us with a context, a playing field on which we can fight and argue and pressure. He listens. Maybe not as fast as we like, but he listens. We can do it. We have to re-elect him, and then we have to fight like hell. We have to get unprecedented numbers in the streets, like it was the early 30s, and there were millions of people in the streets, like the first Earth Day that Senator, Ambassador, you're so many things, John. Now I've lost my train of thought. I looked at you and I had a flashback, okay? What was I saying? Yeah, I know. Oh, good, well, you've been listening, okay, thank you. What did you say? You see, we have to, this year I am going to spend all my time trying to talk to young people about this. We have to have a platform on which we can fight. The orange man, forget it. There's no fight. The door is closed on persuasion and fighting and bringing people from the communities that Bob Bullard talked about. He doesn't care. He's not going to listen. Biden will listen. He just listened to people coming from Freeport, Texas, and Corpus Christi and Cancer Alley and Lake Charles, and they went to D.C. and they told him how they were suffering, and he paused the export of liquefied natural gas. And that might not seem like important or sexy or anything. This is really important what he's done. He's done so many important things that don't make front page news. And so we have to work hard and fight hard, up and down the ballot, elect climate champions that understand we have very little time left, and then we have to be really brave. And we have to learn to love nature again and reconnect with nature the way Namonte talked about. It's our home. It's what keeps us alive. If the ocean dies, we die. If the forests are gone, we're gone. We depend on them. And so please, in this critical, critical year for our future, vote. I'm looking at my granddaughter. Please vote. Vote for the future. Thank you very much.